Okay. Again, waiting for ultrasound. Yeah!
J'ai essayé avec le iPad, maybe only and not the. Hold on.
Here she is. We made it.
Trying. All right. Hi, everybody.
I can't believe that this happened. Oh, what I'm so sad that this is not going to be recorded because it's going to be so interesting. But
maybe.
Yeah. Okay. So everyone, it's a pleasure to have with us Dr. Dominique Penninck. She's a professor at Tufts of diagnostic imaging. And as I said on before, she not only has a book that every single person doing ultrasound has, and has a very successful website where they put an amazing clinical videos, very good for learning. But also she has published like I don't know how many papers. Well, I know how many papers. Oh, I'm going away on PubMed because I look it up. So it's over 40 papers, but probably there are more that they are maybe not listed on PubMed. So thank you for being here.
Ooh, so welcome. A pleasure. After all this technical challenge.
I know. So first of all, I have some kind of general questions until people get a little bit, more into details. Tell us, how many residents have you trained already, Dominique?
Oh boy, that's a mean question. Well, let's say that I started to be teaching residents since 1988. And currently at Tufts we have 6 residents. Then we didn't start by having 6 residents. We had 4 residents in the beginning. Then you can have an idea. So over 30 years is a lot of them.
A lot of residents. So let's start by, I think, and then obviously if you want to, send the conversation towards another direction, but I don't want to start with a negative thing. But what do you think that are the most common mistakes that we do when we have never write a paper? Because I think that so many that are listening, probably they have super interesting cases that we want to do this because we want you to publish all these cases. But it can be very difficult, very scary. So what are the most common mistakes that we do when we are writing this first paper?
I would say that probably, I'm not sure if it's a mistake, but difficulty is that, I don't know, originally we all panic. I was there as well, is that moment of undermining our capacity to write, to put together data, potentially even the scale of statistics or then I think it is overwhelming. It's like the first time you were asked to write a paper at school that was 1 page long, that it sounds enormous. And I think the preconceived idea of publication, because it's such a harsh process as far as review is concerned, then, I think people tend to be a bit frozen. And the people we are speaking about, a lot of them are actually done by, in people in training, right, during residency or equivalent, then it means that they are coming up, they are ready to do their best, and but they are starting in their field, right? And as they start in their field, it means that they don't have a distance, they come to learn, then they don't have the ideas. And what do? They rely most commonly completely on their mentors. To actually follow their track and kind of get a topic, just to make sure to have a study done by the end of the residency. Then I think often that's why I feel like people are disengaged, because they just are overwhelmed. And then it ends up that the topic is not that exciting after all for them. Then, it can take a toll when you didn't make yourself the choice of the topic or the area of interest you have. And then I think it's often a success or not as much a success depending on the mentoring you may have to start.
Yeah, but it's like everything in life. Like if you're doing something that you're not motivated or you don't like or you're not particularly good at, then it's going to be a little bit more difficult. So if, for example, we are thinking, because that I agree that is in kind of a residency point of view, and most of the times you need to finish your paper by 3 years. Your mentor gives you a subject, you just need to do it. But what about if we have, for example, someone that just finished school and they thinking that they would like to do an internship and maybe a residency, or they just want to start writing something? Because again, you're good at something that you keep doing. Like the first paper is not going to be good. So you need to just start by doing like a case report. So when we are doing a case report, what do you think that are the most important things that we're going to need to be thinking about? Let's say that we are just a student that has recently finished vet school, someone that has never written a paper. And then guys, if there is people there with a little bit more experience and other questions, just go ahead and ask. Huh?
I kind of like what you just said. I think in the beginning, when you just want to test the water, probably the best thing to do is to start by case report, because that gives you a feel for it. And the first thing is to read papers. It sounds logic, but it's actually essential. And to summarize papers. And usually that's what I ask my resident when they have a topic, even though there's not much literature on it, is to find things that are touching and make summary, write down the summary. And then learning the task to do a summary kind of gets you to the essential of what you want to do, and then see whatever, if it's a case report or a short case series, what do you bring more to the literature. And if you do clinical research, which is my main interest, is this relevant? Is it something that is going to have an impact on case management and not just being theoretical? I mean, sometimes it's okay to have theoretical paper, especially if it's in physics of a modality or anatomy that can be a bit more descriptive. But I think it's figuring out the style of paper, and that will help already in designing the type of topic that you can select from.
Yeah, and I think that for example, I remember when I was a student, when I was an intern, because when I was a student, I don't think that I wrote anything. When I was an intern, I was preparing presentations, and then I was doing my internship in France. So at that time, I wrote into French journals, that the ones that they are for the country, for like first opinion veterinarians, and you write a case report. But then, as Dominique says, you need to, what are you publishing that? So you may not be, maybe your case has been already described before, but what are you adding to the literature that you're doing, for example, more approachable for an RDVM or more approachable for another student? But you need to know why your paper is going to stand out. And for that, it's going to be important to decide what journal you're going to write your paper on.
Exactly.
How do you decide what journal is appropriate for you, and how do you look for, because as you said, when you write a paper, you need to read papers. And a lot of times, obviously the discussion, you're going to base the discussion in other articles, but you're going to a little bit kind of copy the style of the journal where you're going to publish. So how would you be finding a journal that will be adequate for?
Yeah, I think everybody is a bit different on that one. Actually, for me, the choice of the journal come at last.
Okay.
Yeah, at last, at least until we really are choosing that's the topic, that's the research we are going to do, and then there's already a prep work, because it's still mostly the same frame. It's an abstract, it's going to be introduction, material and method, result, or case series is going to be. Then I always like to start there to see what I'm coming with. And then I'm going to search with maybe before getting into even that, and I think what I really probably have done all along, my life in academia is that actually one of the priorities figuring out who is the team, because I don't think I wrote any or very few only single person paper, because I feel, because I want clinical relevance, if my topic is involving surgery or pathology, I will go and figure out which colleagues is the most likely to be a good combination. And I think that prep work is huge, because then when it comes time to discuss where the paper goes, that's honestly for me a team effort where I will ask my colleague, okay, unless, it's still primary imaging, then I may be the one doing the main decision. But otherwise, if I have an internist with me, I will most likely consult with them to find out, what is the most appropriate paper. And as you said, depending on the references out there, there may be a journal that kind of already target that.
Yeah, I think that completely agree, that especially when you're doing a research study that is going to take you a few years, because guys, writing a paper can take a few years. It's not 1 month job. And sometimes, as you said, like the group. So that's another very important question. How do you, who needs to be the author in a paper? And I think that this is something that really annoys me, because depending on which university you are, there may be some political things going on, and that I hate. But I like the fact that now the journals are being very much more, you need to explain who is doing what. So who needs to be an author in a paper?
Well, that's an excellent question, because it's still, even though I think journal, as you said, do a very good on wanting that to be spelled out, I think you see still, it depends a bit on the country and locations, but to me, the first author is the person who is going to take the responsibility of having the paper all finished. Again, this I'm going to make a little, I'm not saying exception, but this is part of training resident, is that this is a place where it's not only a development of the material, it's not only learning to write, but it's also learning to mature. It sounds a bit pretentious, but there's a bit of a touch of maturity when it comes to handling that, because it's a responsibility, especially when there's a team. Then my advice often is that to spell out very early on who is in the team. It may change occasionally, but if you can, stick with it, and then spell out in the beginning, saying, okay, you are the first author, that's your project for your residency. Then your responsibility is keep the team together. And then if I'm the primary mentor, then I'm going to advise them on a time frame to make sure we have, regular, and then to figure out when to submit even the drafts to the other collaborators, because maybe some of them need only, to bring their, let's say, pathology reports and the pathology discussion component, but I'm not going to show them every single draft, because, I'll be wasting their time. Then, I think this is, to me, as important than learning about the topic, is how to handle this, because it is sometimes a lot of frustration, right? People don't reply, and then that's why I'm speaking about that more emotional maturity, is that you kind of learn to really understand what collaboration means, which is, can be challenging, but fun too, because, the end, okay, that will be the first author. Then to me, the first author, I changed my mind over time. It's not necessarily the person who had the idea, because clearly as it goes for resident, a lot of what is the idea that they have in mind they may have got it from their mentor, right? Then, but that doesn't mean the mentor should be first author. But then after that, depending on the school, that is really variable.
Yeah.
But the primary mentor can be either the person's second name or the person's last, if they are 60.
Yeah, that's always, and those depends a little bit on the journal, right? And that is a difficult one. That is a difficult decision. No,
it's actually not necessarily the journal. It's actually really a school system. Like
it's a school thing.
Yeah, we can have that, but it doesn't really matter, because what matters for all of that is promotion of the person working there, and we'll spell it out now. These days, if you submit a promotion package, people will say, I acted as the primary mentor in such and such and such. Like that you are second or last author doesn't really matter. And usually people in the middle have variable job, like the pathologist, the internist, or the even a student collecting data. If there's a lot of things to collect, then did I answer your question? I may have lost it.
Yeah, I think that also I think that I think that there is an answer for like more like a university environment. And I guess also my question was, because I mean, it could be a very long question, will be, does every single person that has touched this animal need to be an author? No. The people that need to be an author are people that they are actively doing something with the paper, whether I mean, sometimes could be a surgeon that has done all the surgeries, but not because one surgeon has done one surgery in one of the 200 cases needs to be an author.
You're right.
Every author needs to contribute in writing the paper, whether by reviewing the data, whether by reviewing the discussion or the last draft, but every single author needs to be involved in the paper, but just not adding 10,000 people in the authors because someone put a catheter into the animal one day.
No, I agree. And I see that somebody's asking about, you know, when you are in a clinical setup and do not have a mentor. Absolutely. I think I discussed that topic with Ane several times because, you know, I personally will hope that we'll see more and more paper coming, especially with clinical relevance coming from clinics, because there's usually a huge amount of data. Then I think what you need, wherever you are, is a systematic and a rigorous way to collect your data. Then either that you have prospectively or retrospectively an ID that is making sure you have consistency and credibility in the diagnosis. Then, you know, obviously having good relationship with the pathologist or surgeon and all of that, but it's completely possible. Not having a mentor, it's always possible to have a mentor. I mean, it's like you can call up somebody. It doesn't mean that mentor has to be holding your hand every step in the way, but I surely advise people, and many of us do, without being a co-author or whatever, because as Annie said, there's no merit or need for that. But sometimes people just need a little tweak and a little orientation. But if it's not a mentor, you know, again, I will urge at the collaboration. And it could be with colleagues of yours that have also a similar interest. Because debating the paper will lead you to really go further. And I surely have several veterinarian friends who do publish really good papers, and they are usually in specialized clinics, but no doubt that, you know, it's possible. But I think you can always find a mentor. And it doesn't have to be somebody famous, somebody who has 300 publications. There are people who have really good judgment, and I'm sure you guys know some of them around. Then That would be my advice. But definitely publication from outside university setup is a must. And
Is needed, yeah. And I have example, for example, a friend of mine, she recently had an interesting case that she operated on, she put a shunt, and then she thought that it was a very interesting case, that it went really well. And she just kind of told me, oh, I think that I'm going to publish this case. What do you think? And then I was like, yeah, I think that is very interesting. But to kind of wrap it up, you will need to whether do a follow-up MRI to prove that you have indeed resolved that hydrocephalus that you had, or you need to, if the owners cannot afford, then you need to wait at least 1 year. And then if 1 year later your dog is clinical, so sometimes you just can, as you said, discuss with a colleague, and then you're going to say the idea, I have this clinical case, so I have these 3-4 cases that I've been collecting, and actually every single time I have, I don't know, an X-ray, an ultrasound, whatever you have, whatever diagnosis, and then someone can give you a little bit of an idea, and they can come up with questions that maybe you didn't think about. So yeah, I think that brainstorming is very, very important for these papers.
yeah,
Definitely.
yeah, no, yeah, yeah.
But
The resources on publication, there are now a bunch of possibility online, which, what is the goal of publishing is sharing information, right?
exactly.
And I think whatever the mean these days, they are so multiple that there's definitely a place for everybody to share their experience.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that again, let's go back to the beginning. Like we really encourage all of you to publish and to write and to report, and then start by something simple, and maybe start in your own language, in your own country. And then a little bit what we were also discussing with Thiago Muller on the first Insta Live. We were thinking, what do you want to get out of this in 5 years' time? So is it in your 5-year goal to be a resident? Then, yeah, you're going to need to push it a little bit to try to publish into probably an American journal, if you can, or some of the European, because that's going to have a little bit more value probably for your CV applying for a residency. But then if that is not your goal, and then what you want to do is share with people in your country these cases that you have, then you don't need to publish with the GBIM. There's a very, very good local journals that a lot of people read. So start by something simple, and then if you think that you like it and you're good at it, then you cannot publish twice the same case. So save the good ones. But
Right. No, absolutely. I think that's, the thing to remember, there is really an amazing satisfaction to share information. You have to have just one thing in mind, is being simple, and remember that whatever you put out there is going to change in 5 years from there or 10 years from there. Then, I feel like it's a cool risk. I would rather participate to share information that I may think 15 years from now, oh my gosh, why did I say that at the time? Well, we say that because there's a progression in what we learn. And I think, we need to keep that in mind. And it's a humility lesson too, because, we just keep learning, all of us.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So there is a very, very good question about, doing the literature review and your literature search when you are a clinician, when you don't have all these paper resources, when you cannot pay for all these journals. I don't think that there is a easy answer for that one, because at the end of the day, you need to read the papers, right?
Yeah, I think it depends where you are and which country and all of this, of course, because I think that surely in university is not an issue because they do provide it, but Google Scholar give you access to many things, no doubt. And and specialized clinics surely could be a place for negotiating to make sure that they give access to their employee to really extensive library capacity. But Google Scholar is surely a pretty good place to start to get, the baseline. But there's no
Yeah,
doubt at times, I feel some paper I cannot reach and I have to ask at my library for reaching out. But this is going to only improve because already if you are in
yeah,
LinkedIn, academia, I mean,
yeah,
all
yeah,
of
yeah,
this, exchange,
yeah.
they provide more availability to this, yeah.
Yeah, and there's also more and more like a veterinary college that they also provide some subscriptions. Another trick also, you have the website ResearchGate. So you know that a lot of us, we are on ResearchGate and we have our papers there. So you can contact directly the author and the author could release the paper for you. So it's a little bit more work, definitely, that you just, if you have, obviously, you're subscribed to all these papers, it's just like one click and you download. Yeah, so then also Bruno is giving another link, which I'm sure
Good.
that I know that a lot of people, they have also some like tricks to find free downloads. Also on PubMed, to be fair, first of all, there's a lot of free online papers on PubMed and also outside PubMed because not everything is on PubMed. And then I think that also reaching out on these social media platforms, as you see, a lot
Yeah.
of people have links, a lot of people have the paper, or yeah, contacting the authors also. Again, we are all here to help each other. So contacting authors, they can release you
Yeah.
papers, and
Yeah.
that's a little bit more work, but it shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah.
So how long do you think that, so then for people that they haven't done this, and let's divide it a little bit into kind of writing your first report, your first case report, or writing a research. So how long will a paper take to be written? So I know, but I don't think a lot of people realize that this is not a 1 week.
Right.
So how long do you think that a first case report could take to someone that has never written a paper?
Um, all of I mean, it's a very tricky question. If you start with a case report, and the case report is really primarily descriptive, then particularly easy on imaging to have that kind of potential scenario, then and you do have a person of contact, the mentor that you work with, then my guess is that back and forth of draft, depending on how busy you and the other person is, could be a 6 months, could be 2 months, could be 6 months. But I can tell you right now, I'm working with a resident who is having a case series to work on, and the case series has only 3 or 4 cases, and we're already at over a year in the process. Because what's happened is that everybody, especially if you're not the only one doing it, then it may sit on the person reading it over. Personally, I'm usually very committed to move the papers as I go along, but very commonly people will spend a year to wrap a simple
Yeah,
publication.
yeah,
However, again, it depends on, I've seen, everything. I've seen a resident doing that in 4 months. But again, that has to be something very specific with very little literature to gather. But
yeah,
if you have a simple case and what you bring on board is going to almost bring up a review of the literature, and that will be longer, very interesting, but longer. Then you see, I
yeah,
mean, it's really hard to And of course, if you start doing prospective or I mean, if you do prospective study, then it means most likely grant application. Grant application means that the process of the grant can take from anywhere to, let's say, maybe an average of 6 months
Yeah.
to send the grant, to get the approval and the starting date of the grant. But if it's retrospective and you have a lot of cases, then the gathering of cases, the first step when you do like larger study is actually the gathering of information and how to establish your Excel table to make sure you get everything on board day one, that you don't have to just keep going back and forth to medical records or, you know, pathology report and all of that. Then I think, you know, that is definitely the challenge is, and, you know, a combination of the team plus the topic, but an average minimum of 6 months.
And remember, guys, that then it can be another 6 months for the paper to actually be out, because you send the paper, they need to review it, then you have to always need to do little changes, big changes, major changes. So like there's no way your paper is going to be out in less than a year. If it is a pre-review journal, okay, we're talking about pre-review journals. Of course, that there is other journals where there's not going to be a pre-review. It's more like an article, an opinion, but we're talking about pre-review journals, which kind of goes a little bit to the question that we have. Does Brazilian Veterinary College, how does the, so there was a question about if the Brazilian Veterinary College were well seen outside, which I think that is a little bit of a difficult question because, I mean, there is a lot of Brazilian vet schools. I know that there is a lot of people in Latin America that they publish on Brazilian journals. I personally have never read Brazilian journals because I believe that they are in Portuguese, but I may be wrong. So I guess that the limitation for me will be the language. If there is a journal that is on PubMed and it's a pre-review journal and it's in English, it doesn't matter where the journal is coming from.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely true. The way accessibility and visibility, but it depends, as you said, Annie, earlier, it depends a bit of the objectives. You know, like if you want to look for a specific job in your own country, then somebody.
Sorry. Ura, she wants to play.
But somebody will ask also about when you write if you should include literature from humans. This is actually a very pertinent question too, because you know, when I started, you know, my area of interest primarily is gastrointestinal, digestive stuff. And, you know, when I first started, I actually was already doing ultrasound for like something like 4 years before I did my first real paper on GI. And at the time, there was nothing in veterinary medicine. Then, of course, I use a lot of human references because that's what inspired me to do the work is that first we kept saying, oh, there's gas in the GI, there's no point to do anything. And that's what my mentor was telling me as well during my residency. And then I was intrigued by it by reading so many human articles. Then, yes, I think it's appropriate to bring humans article especially, or even other species, but it needs to be thoughtful these days because that's not 30 years ago, it's today. Then sometimes I'm annoyed when I see human papers that are really very little relevance to what we are speaking about, and they're actually good veterinary papers on it. Then you see what I mean? You kind of need to make a judgment of what really is going to help, you know, your colleagues. And, you know, if I find that there's something very different in the human literature that we need to look into it, then yes, bring it on. That's really very useful.
Yeah, like for example, let's give an example. If you want to be for example, publishing something about spinal fractures in dogs. I'm not sure that you're going to use a lot of like human literature because the biomechanics, the type of techniques that we use, the neurological exam situation will be very, very different. So there you do have enough of biomechanical studies in veterinary medicine. You have a lot of research. You have a lot of obviously clinical cases, case published. So you're going to need to do a very good literature of what is available in veterinary medicine. On the other hand, if, for example, you have an idea and you have found very rare, I don't know, a tumor that has never been reported in veterinary medicine in the brain, the pathologists have seen, yeah, this is reported in very strange cases in human medicine, in young kids, but has never been presented in the dog, then yes, definitely you're going to need to do your literature and then see how it's been presented in humans, what they think that is coming from or what it is. But yeah, you don't need to compare spinal fractures in human medicine. It wouldn't be giving you anything extra. And as Dominique said, it's not because it's human, it's better at all.
Yeah.
And I think that's, and then you could spend so much time trying to get the right papers also.
If I may go back to that question about the Brazilian Veterinary College, how they are seen, are they well seen outside? I do believe, I mean, again, I have the angle of being a radiologist, but I do think that there's always a matter of humans, right? And I can tell you that seeing, even if it's only a few Brazilian going out there, but seeing people in international meetings, that's how countries are starting to be known. I'll give you an example. In my field, maybe 25 years ago in Europe, I'm Belgian originally, then I would just go to the European meetings as well. And most talk were by the British, the Dutch, the German, and you would never, for example, hear Italians or very little. They were very shy about speaking up. And then now you go to the same meetings and they were there. And, I don't know what did happen, but they actually, many countries similarly, are taking their imprint. And in meetings, I'm starting to see more Brazilian and South American representation.
Yeah.
And I think that will evolve. But you need to go out there. This is the only way that people, because when, I was lucky to go to Brazil a couple of times, but that's when I see them in meetings that I feel like, wow, this is really cool. And what do they do? And then you start asking questions and then you start potentially collaborating. And then it means that when they apply to jobs or residency in the US or in Europe, they are now, it's not fully foreign anymore. You see what I mean? That could be helpful.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. Like you need, people that is putting themselves out there. We like the way that also, how do we do a literature research? So you go to PubMed or you go to Google, you need to know also, that's very important. And maybe, I don't know, we're going to have time to talk. How do you look for keywords? And looking for keywords is something also that you get better. The more you look, the easier it gets to get information. So you don't go to PubMed and say, okay, let's see what the British have published about, or let's see what the Brazilians saying about. You just put up your keywords, you look for papers that they are pre-review papers with a good impact factor, that that they have a good content, you can understand. So English is true that is going to be a little bit easier. And then obviously if you have the same author that is coming up all the time at the same university, and I know that there is a lot of Brazilian universities that they are publishing in neurology, and then that's when you recognize a college, a university, by just seeing that they publish in a good content. I think that's. So someone also asked this question. We were talking a little bit at the beginning, but maybe we can revisit a little bit. They say, so is the same person that was asking about kind of publishing on clinics, and how do you decide a journal to publish in. So let's kind of maybe answer, because we did answer about a little bit if we were doing research. So if you are going to publish something coming from a private hospital, so you have some case report or few cases report that you would like to publish, yeah, how would you choose a journal to, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, we say a little bit. Is can be tricky, but sometimes it's simple. I mean, I have only mostly the American perspective on that, but I would say if I publish on something on cats, which I do kind of a fair amount, I'm going to the Journal of Feline Medicine and Surgery because I do like their style of editing. What's happened is that you need to get familiar to make a choice. You need to get familiar, and what I advise my resident, because I want to make the choice for them initially, then I advise them on the topic to find key papers, read them, summarize them, and look at the style of writing. And then once that is defined, for example, if you have a paper where it's a prospective study, you have a fair amount of data, you have some statistic made by somebody who knows what they are doing, there's really good clinical relevance, maybe JVIM would be your journal of reference. Then if it's purely very, very clinical and still good quality, you may want to think JAHA. I mean, then there's the first primary orientation, and then there's the style and the topic that I'm going to look at the references and say, oh, okay, that's good. Also, another thing, don't ever be shy to think that actually I experienced several young people having that challenge is that you gather data and you have this draft that you really would like to share, but somebody just published it recently. You saw it in the last.
I know, that's, yeah. Oh.
Don't ever think that this is it. I mean, the question to ask yourself at that time is like, okay, they wrote down that. Usually they will never ever have the same exact frame of mind that you did. Then read carefully without desperation their papers, and then see what else have you done, have you said in your paper. And then I advise people at times to actually even go to that journal and say, okay, I actually have this paper that I wrote on such and such, and these are the angles that we have that are a bit different to the paper recently published. Would you still consider this publication, or do you advise me to go somewhere else to publish? And you'd be surprised, but often journals are interested in that because we will need more in the veterinary literature. Then don't be discouraged if you see that neither.
Yeah.
What do you think, Anne? I don't know.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I've been in that situation, like collecting, I don't know how many hundred of cases of hydrocephalus. And then, you have the RVC that published the paper and you're like, And I never published it actually. But I know. I think that, what you said is like, also you're going to be doing your literature before you publish anything. So you know in which journals and what are they looking for in the journals. And all the journals, they have a very, very similar style. So by reading different journals and reading the papers, you're going to have the feeling of where your article, your frame of mind, the story that you want to tell is going to fit. It's like, do you want to publish into Vogue, or do you want to publish into the New York Times? I mean, it's a completely different, I guess, editors. So, okay, so to finish, why everyone listening here should publish a paper?
Because it's fun. It is actually fun, and it's amazingly rewarding. You know, I think I told you recently, I have one of my residents who just recently got her paper accepted, and she worked hard on it for at least a good year and a half, maybe 2 years. And maybe 2 years actually. And And in the beginning, she really was resisting, so much resisting it. And then she would give all the excuses. She would say, I don't even see what we are supposed to see. I mean, really, there was a lot of resistance, shyness. But I think it built confidence actually to write paper, because you just all of a sudden kind of put the effort on something specific.
Yeah.
Then I find it very rewarding.
It's very
The
rewarding.
writing part, you know, is actually, you know, I'm not English speaker, native English speaker. Then obviously you can only imagine my first paper was a disaster. But it's like any new adventure or conquest, you know, you kind of get to master something, and then people will ask your opinion about that. You kind of build your own credibility. So it's just really rewarding, I think.
Yeah, and it's true that if you are able to a little bit kind of have, I know that it's difficult when you're starting, but having a little bit of a file, like a subject that you're going to follow, that is going to be really good. So last question, hopefully we have time. So what about long follow-up? So Ida is asking, what about if you only have like phone follow-up, or do you need to do like X-ray or other type of long follow-up? Will it be a problem to validate the paper? Because that depends on the subject, right? And depends what you want to prove. But to wrap up perfectly well a paper, you need to have a good follow-up.
I would say if you have any doubt, because as Ane was saying, it all depends a bit on the topic. There's some places where you just don't have such a great follow-up. I would always don't be shy to contact the editor. They're actually very approachable. And then just say, hey, I have in mind to publish this. Here is my abstract. These are the things I worry about. Do you think it's worth pursuing? They will let you know. And then that's the way you can decide not to waste your time if they say, oh, no way. But, you know, they're interested in you. They're interested in getting information to share. And again, explore actually the online publication, because they're also reviewed. And I think, you know, they gave a lot of different outlets. As Annie said in the beginning, knowing what is your purpose and sharing information is a huge one and is the best one. But if plus you want to go further in your training, then it truly is a cool addition, you know, to your profile. And
yeah, because you can maybe be describing a new technique and you're just like, okay, so actually I realize that every single cat that I see, that I do this type of ultrasound in this pathology, I find that you have plenty of those. And I mean, I don't know, I am just maybe taking a wrong example. But it depends if you're doing a descriptive study or not. But I think that that's a very good idea. I didn't think about that. It's true that writing the editor and asking questions, yeah, that's definitely, yeah. I think that we always care about asking people and contacting people. One advice that I will say about contacting people, as much as you put in, you get back. And I say this also for a lot of people that they contact me on Instagram. Sometimes I can see people that they put a lot of effort on asking a question, and I'm going to put on answering that question. If you want someone to do your job, so the editor is not going to do your. Okay, so I'm asking Dominique to get back again. So yeah, what we were saying about, so the last question was, yes, about the follow-up, and we were saying that, yeah, depends on the subject. Okay, here she is. Okay. Okay. Should be there in a second. It has been a very tumultuous Instagram, Dominique. Yeah. I'm sorry that I give you this difficult experience.
It's probably my fault, you know?
No. Okay, so we were talking about, about the follow-up. We were talking about why we need to write a paper. And we were saying that the follow-up and how much follow-up and all that and what is important will depend on the subject. And then again, what are the other things that have been published? The follow-up is very difficult. And I think that is why a lot of people, they may get stuck and not publish because they think that they don't have enough follow-up. I would think that it could be very, very difficult. But then maybe you can reframe your paper, maybe, because I think that what I feel from what you say, Dominique, is you really want to push people to get out the data they have. And maybe your paper, because a common mistake is that you think that the paper is going to save the world of veterinary medicine. And you have two versions, whether you want to do the paper of the year and you're going to do your first paper, you're going to be an amazing, it's going to change the life of everyone, or you just want to publish something for the sake of publish, which that's never a good idea. But then maybe your aspirations need to go a little bit down and then say, okay, let's first prove something and then we prove other things as we go on. What do you think?
Well, I think that, again, I think in life, it's not just for paper, but surely for paper, you need collaborators, you need mentors. Then I think because that's the kind of thing to chat about. Because like follow-up, I was just before they could hear you speaking about, if you're a surgeon, you want to make sure to take, a bunch of pictures. If you do orthopedic surgery, you want to make sure to have decent follow-up for the healing, if it's the focus of your paper. But maybe that's not the focus of the paper. If the paper focuses on the technique itself, then exactly, the follow-up is not needed. Now, because you are not the only difference is that you are not going to be able to say that this technique is recommended because it is successful, because you don't have the follow-up. But you can describe the technique. Then you see the twist of the angle is really exactly all what matters. Exactly. Then it depends what are the gaps of the literature to be able to, convey all that. That's why I think that conversation with colleagues is a must, because that's what because this is also at the end of the day, paper published or not, that's where you are going to learn. And to me, that's the ultimate, is that is beefing up your own knowledge to be able to share it with others. Then that may be the way to think of it. Otherwise, why would we throw ourselves? I mean, I'm not that masochist. I mean, because publication can be annoying. There's a part that is annoying, to tell you the truth. The first one, which is gathering of data, reading the literature, summarizing it, integrating your data into the big scoop of the literature, is cool. The discussion is the beef, but it's a bit difficult because it takes that you have chew on your data. Yeah. But then when you submit it, that's the painful part, right? I mean, it can be really...
When you read the comments and then,
Because remember that the people that review the papers have not been trained into doing that. There's no training for criticizing a paper. Then you have, people who are really qualified, and there are people who are atrocious about that. But you need to navigate about it. That's maybe the part that's the most, annoying or intimidating. People worry when they receive the paper and they say major revision. Majority of my papers have been major revision, because major revision may not be that major.
Or directly not accepted because we don't think that you want to prove here is relevant.
Yeah, interesting. But that's why I think the communication with the editor before submission is a good idea, because there's no reason why they wouldn't acknowledge your request on, knowing if it's appropriate for the journal. That's a really good way not to waste your time.
Yeah, definitely, because obviously every paper has a different editing. So you even if you have the discussion and everything, when you need to submit for another journal, there's a lot of work that goes into it again.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. So I think that we've done the hour. after our little technical difficulties. I'm really sorry that we haven't been able to record this one. And it's a pain that Instagram doesn't let us share to. So if anyone knows how to share these videos to another platform, because I haven't been able to do it, please let me know. But any other questions? If there is any other questions, go ahead. Publish your data. Start by something that you feel motivated and rewarded. And then continue building up. And then, yeah, depends. Why do you want to do the paper? What is your 5-year plan? Start simple. It's not easy. We have not vet school how to write a paper at all. We don't even study how to write a discharge of a case. So what about write a paper? So yeah, it's not easy, but it's worth it, and it's part of our job. We need to keep learning and sharing our knowledge, so then we all can learn.
Well, thank you for the invite. That was very nice chatting with you. And seeing all the little beautiful hearts going by, that's always fun.
Yeah. I see you later to walk the dogs.
Sounds good.
Okay, guys, nice to thank you for being there, and thank you for all the questions. It's really motivating to hear that you're interested, and keep writing.